How much Bitcoin do you actually need to never work again? It's the question every single person asks the moment they start taking crypto seriously. And almost everyone gets the answer wildly wrong. They either think it's some impossible number, like 50 coins, or they think one lucky Bitcoin will do it. The real answer is a number you can actually calculate for your life tonight. And by the end of this video, you will have it. This is not financial advice, and Bitcoin is volatile. But stick with me, because the math is simpler and more motivating than you think. Let's start with the foundation, and it's got nothing to do with crypto. It's the one rule that quietly runs every early retirement plan on Earth. It's called the 4% rule. Here's the whole idea in one breath. Researchers found that if you have a pot of investments, you can safely pull out about 4% of it in your first year of retirement, adjust for inflation after that, and in almost every historical case, that money lasts 30 years or more. Flip that around and it gives you a target. If you can live on 4% of your pot, then your pot needs to be about 25 times your yearly spending. 25 times. That's the magic multiplier. Spend $40,000 a year? You need about $1 million. Spend $20,000? $500,000. Your entire freedom number comes down to one thing you control: how much your life actually costs. So, step 1, before we touch Bitcoin at all, figure out your real yearly number. Not your dream yacht number, your "I never have to set an alarm again" number. For a lot of people, that's somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 a year. Write it down. Multiply it by 25. That's your target pot. Hold that number in your head, because now we bring in the Bitcoin. Here's where it gets interesting, and where most videos lie to you. How much Bitcoin do I need is impossible to answer without one assumption. What will one Bitcoin be worth when you retire? Because that single variable changes everything. So instead of pretending I know the future, let me show you the whole map, and you pick your own belief. Let's say your target is that $1 million pot. Watch how the amount of Bitcoin you need collapses as the price rises. If Bitcoin trades at $100,000, $1 million is 10 Bitcoin. If it reaches $250,000, suddenly you only need 4. At $500,000 per coin, it's just 2. And if Bitcoin ever hits $1 million, a number the biggest bulls genuinely believe in, then a single Bitcoin is your entire retirement. One coin. That is the whole reason people are so obsessed with accumulating Bitcoin now. They're betting that the number of coins they need will keep shrinking as the price climbs. Now let me be the adult in the room for a second. Nobody knows which of those futures is real. Bitcoin could 5x from here, or it could cut in half and stay there for 2 years. So the honest, grown-up answer to "how much Bitcoin do I need to retire?" is this: somewhere between roughly 1 and 10 coins for a modest, regular retirement. And where you land in that range depends entirely on how high the price goes over your lifetime. But here's the liberating part. You do not need to guess correctly. You just need to start stacking, because every Satoshi you accumulate is a Satoshi you don't have to buy at a higher price later. And that word, stacking, is the key to this whole thing. Because here's the reality check almost nobody says out loud. The overwhelming majority of people will never buy a whole Bitcoin in one go, and they don't need to. Bitcoin divides into 100 million tiny pieces called Satoshis, or sats. You don't buy a Bitcoin, you stack sats, a little at a time, automatically, for years. And that turns an impossible-sounding goal into a boring, repeatable habit. Let me show you the power of that habit with real, simple math. Say you put aside just $200 a month. That's it. Over 10 years, that's $24,000 of your own money invested. But you didn't buy at one price. You bought every month, through crashes and rallies at an average. That approach is called dollar cost averaging, and it is the single most important technique for a normal person building a position, because it removes the one thing that destroys people: the emotion of trying to time the perfect moment. When the price crashes, Your $200 quietly buys more coins. When everyone's euphoric and it's expensive, it buys less. You become the calm, boring machine that just keeps stacking. And over a full market cycle, boring wins. So, where do you actually do this safely and automatically? This part matters more than almost anything, because starting on some random, sketchy app is how beginners lose everything before they even begin. The platform I personally use to buy and stack is Bybit. It's one of the largest crypto exchanges in the world. Deep liquidity, serious security, and low fees. But it's still simple enough that you can make your first buy in a couple of minutes and set up a recurring purchase, so your stacking happens automatically every week or month without you lifting a finger. You can start with a tiny amount, literally the price of a dinner, just to learn the ropes. And if you use the link in the description, you'll get a sign-up bonus to start you off. Just promise me one thing. Only ever invest money you can genuinely afford to lose. That rule never changes. Okay, you've got your number. You're stacking sats on autopilot. Now I have to warn you about the trap that wrecks Bitcoin retirement plans, because it's sneaky. Remember the 4% rule? It quietly assumes your pot doesn't swing violently. But Bitcoin does. Imagine you finally hit your target. Let's say that 1 million in Bitcoin, and you retire. Then the market drops 50% in a few months, like it has many times before. Now your million is 500,000, and you still need to pull out your 40,000 to live. You'd be selling your coins at the worst possible moment, locking in the crash, and gutting the pot you spent a decade building. That is the nightmare scenario. So here's how the smart, long-term holders diffuse it. It's called a glide path. As you get close to your target, say the last couple of years before you pull the trigger, you slowly move a chunk of your stack, maybe 2 or 3 years worth of expenses, out of Bitcoin and into something boring and stable. Cash, short-term bonds, a stablecoin earning yield. Now, when you retire, you live off the boring, stable bucket first. And if Bitcoin crashes right after you stop working, you don't care. You don't have to touch a single coin. You just spend from the stable bucket and wait for Bitcoin to recover, which, historically, it always has. You only sell Bitcoin to refill that bucket when the price is healthy. It's the difference between being forced to sell and choosing to. And that leads to the real mindset shift this whole video is about. Bitcoin retirement is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get-rich-slow one. It plays out over multiple 4-year cycles, a decade, maybe 2. The people who actually make it are not the geniuses who time the top. They're the stubborn, patient ones who picked a number, stacked sats through every scary headline, secured their coins, and simply refused to sell out of fear. Time in the market, not timing the market. That is the entire game. So let me hand you the actual plan, start to finish. Step 1. Calculate your freedom number, your yearly spending times 25. Step 2. Decide your Bitcoin belief and accept a target somewhere in that 1 to 10 coin range. You can always adjust as the years go by. Step 3. Automate your stacking. Pick an amount you won't miss, set up a recurring buy, and let dollar-cost averaging do the heavy lifting. Step 4. Secure it. As your stack grows, get it off the exchange and into cold storage, because a stack you can't keep isn't really yours. And Step 5. As you approach your goal, build your glide path so a crash can never force your hand. That's it. That's the whole thing. Boring, mechanical, and shockingly effective. Quick, important reminder. This is education, not financial advice. Bitcoin is genuinely volatile. It can go to zero in theory, and you should never bet money you need. But if this is the first time the whole "how much Bitcoin do I actually need" question turned from a fantasy into a real, calculable plan, subscribe. Because the next video is the one that protects everything we just built. Exactly how to store your Bitcoin so it can never be hacked, frozen, or stolen. Get the stacking right, get the security right, and you're playing a completely different game from everyone around you. I'll see you there.